Sophia, a 7-month pregnant woman, moved into an old countryside house with her husband, Daniel. The house was big, with tall windows and wooden floors that creaked with every step. It stood in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick trees. Daniel was excited about the peaceful location, but Sophia felt uneasy. There was something about the silence, it was too quiet, almost like the house was waiting for something. "This is perfect," Daniel said, placing boxes in the living room. "We'll raise our baby here. It's peaceful." Sophia smiled weakly but didn't respond. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, and a strange feeling crept into her mind. She shook it off. "Maybe I'm just tired," she thought. That night, after unpacking, Sophia lay in bed, unable to sleep. The house made strange noises, soft creaks and whispers that seemed to come from the walls. She nudged Daniel, who was fast asleep. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. But Daniel didn't move. Sophia sat up, straining to listen. A faint sound echoed through the hall. It was like a lullaby, soft and chilling. Confused, she got out of bed and walked toward the nursery. The room was empty except for the crib they had set up earlier. The sound grew louder as she stepped inside. "Is someone here?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. Suddenly, the room grew cold. The air felt heavy, and her breath became visible in the icy air. She clutched her belly protectively and turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind her. Panic surged through her. She tried opening the door, but it wouldn't budge. Then, she heard it, a soft whisper. It was faint but clear. "Mine, the baby is mine." Sophia froze, her heart racing. "Who's there?" she cried out. The crib started rocking slowly on its own. Sophia's eyes widened in terror as she watched. She backed away, her hand gripping the door handle, pulling with all her strength. Finally, the door flew open, and she stumbled out, gasping for air. Running back to the bedroom, she shook Daniel awake. "There's something in the nursery." Someone was there. Daniel looked at her with sleepy eyes. "Sophia, you're just stressed. It's the pregnancy. Get some rest." But Sophia knew what she felt. What she heard. And as she lay back down, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that something in the house was watching her, and her baby. Sophia couldn't forget what happened in the nursery. The whispers, the cold air, and the rocking crib haunted her mind. She tried to convince herself it was her imagination, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. The next night, she woke up gasping. She had a terrible dream. A shadowy figure stood over her crib as a baby, whispering strange words. She couldn't see its face, but its long, thin fingers reached toward her, and she felt helpless. When she opened her eyes, her heart was pounding, and sweat dripped down her forehead. She turned on the lamp and froze. There were scratches on her arm. 3 long, red marks ran down her skin, stinging as if they had just appeared. She shook Daniel awake, her voice trembling. "Daniel, look at this. This wasn't here when I went to sleep." Daniel rubbed his eyes and sat up, frowning at her arm. "You probably scratched yourself in your sleep," he said, trying to sound calm. "No, I didn't. This isn't normal," Sophia insisted. But Daniel sighed, brushing it off. "Sophia, you're stressed. Pregnancy does strange things to the mind. Try to relax." Sophia felt frustrated, but she didn't argue. She knew Daniel wouldn't believe her. The next day, Sophia was alone in the house while Daniel went to work. She decided to stay out of the nursery, but no matter where she went, she felt drawn to it. The whispers started again, faint but clear, calling her name. "Sophia." Her heart raced. She covered her ears, but the voice grew louder. It wasn't just one voice now, it was many, overlapping and echoing through the house. Finally, she couldn't resist. She walked to the nursery, her legs trembling. When she opened the door, everything was silent. The crib sat in the corner, perfectly still. Sophia stepped closer, and that's when she saw it. Written on the wall, in what looked like blood, were the words, "The baby is mine." She stumbled back, her hands covering her mouth to stop a scream. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. The whispers returned, louder and angrier. "No!" Sophia shouted, pounding on the door. She felt the cold air wrap around her like icy hands. When the door finally opened on its own, Sophia ran out, her heart pounding. She knew now, this wasn't her imagination. Something evil was in the house, and it wanted her baby. Sophia's fear grew stronger every day. The house no longer felt like a home, it felt like a trap. The whispers followed her everywhere, even in daylight. Daniel still didn't believe her, blaming stress and hormones. But Sophia knew the truth. Something evil was in the house, and it was watching her. One night, she woke up again, but this time it wasn't a dream. She found herself standing in the nursery, staring at the crib. Her hands were gripping the edges so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She didn't remember walking there. Confused and scared, Sophia stepped back. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. The next morning, she felt exhausted. Her body ached, and she noticed bruises on her wrists. When she told Daniel, he gave her a worried look. "Sophia, you need to rest more. You're probably sleepwalking." "I've never sleepwalked before," she argued. "This isn't normal, Daniel. I feel like I'm losing control." That night, Sophia made a decision. She stayed awake, determined to catch whatever was happening. She sat in bed with the lamp on, her eyes scanning the room. Hours passed, and the house grew silent. But at midnight, everything changed. The lamp flickered, and a cold wind blew through the room, even though the windows were shut. Sophia's body froze, unable to move. Her eyes darted around, searching for the source of the cold. Then, she saw it, her reflection in the mirror. It wasn't her. The woman in the mirror had Sophia's face, but her eyes were black, empty pits. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as the reflection whispered, "The baby is mine." Suddenly, Sophia felt her body move on its own. She stood up, her legs trembling but not under her control. She walked to the nursery, each step slow and heavy. Inside, the whispers grew louder, surrounding her like a storm. Her hands reached for the crib, but she wasn't doing it. She was being controlled. "Stop!" Sophia screamed, but her voice came out as a whisper. Her reflection appeared again in the window, smiling wickedly. "Don't fight me, Sophia," the voice said. "You'll only make it harder for yourself. Soon, your baby will be mine." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she realized she wasn't just being haunted. She was being taken over. Sophia's nights turned into a nightmare she couldn't escape. Every time she tried to resist the strange force controlling her, it became stronger. She often woke up in the nursery, her hands reaching for the crib, her lips whispering words she didn't understand. She was losing herself, and Daniel still didn't believe her. One evening, Sophia sat with Daniel at the dining table. Her eyes were hollow, and her hands trembled as she held her tea. "Daniel," she said softly, "I can't do this anymore. Something is wrong with me, with this house. We need help." Daniel sighed, placing his hand on hers. "Sophia, I don't know how to help if you won't calm down. There's nothing here. It's just us." Before Sophia could respond, the lights flickered, and a loud thud came from the nursery. They both froze. "Did you hear that?" Sophia whispered. Daniel nodded, his face pale. "Stay here," he said, standing up. But Sophia couldn't stay behind. She followed him as he opened the nursery door. The room was freezing, and the air felt thick. Written on the walls in large, bloody letters were the words, *, "She can't keep the baby from me." Daniel stared in horror. What is this?" he stammered. Sophia grabbed his arm. "Do you believe me now?" she cried. "Something is here, Daniel. It's been here all along." The next day, desperate for answers, Daniel called Father John, a priest from the nearby town. When the priest arrived, he listened carefully as Sophia told him everything, the whispers, the mirror, the strange force controlling her. Father John's face grew grim. "This house has a dark history," he said. "Years ago, a woman named Eliza lived here. She was pregnant, but her child was stillborn. The grief drove her mad, and she cursed this house. She swore no mother would ever keep her child here." Sophia's heart sank. "She wants my baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Father John nodded. "Her spirit has latched onto you. She's trying to take control of your body to claim the child as her own." "What do we do?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. The priest looked at Sophia with a solemn expression. "We must perform an exorcism. But it won't be easy. This spirit is strong, and it will fight to stay." Sophia clenched her fists, her fear mixing with determination. She had to protect her baby, no matter what. But deep down, she knew the worst was yet to come. The night of the exorcism was filled with dread. Father John arrived with holy water, a crucifix, and a Bible. Sophia sat in the living room, trembling, while Daniel stayed close, holding her hand. "This spirit is desperate," Father John warned. "It will fight hard to stay. Sophia, you must stay strong. No matter what happens, don't give in." Sophia nodded, though fear consumed her. She felt the spirit's presence growing stronger, like a storm building inside her. The priest began the ritual, sprinkling holy water around the room and chanting prayers. As he spoke, the temperature in the house dropped sharply, and the lights flickered. Sophia gasped as a sharp pain shot through her stomach. She clutched her belly, crying out. "It's starting," Father John shouted. The whispers began again, louder and angrier this time. The words echoed around them, overlapping in a sinister chant. "The baby is mine, give her to me." Sophia's body jerked violently as if something inside her was trying to take control. Her head snapped back, and her eyes turned completely black. She spoke in a voice that wasn't hers, a deep, raspy voice filled with rage. "You can't stop me," the voice hissed. "This baby belongs to me. Sophia, fight it," Daniel yelled, gripping her shoulders. Father John held up the crucifix, his voice steady as he continued the prayers. "In the name of God, leave this woman. You have no claim here." Sophia's body thrashed wildly, her hands clawing at the air. The furniture in the room shook violently, and a deafening scream erupted from her mouth. The spirit was fighting to stay, its presence filling the room with pure hatred. The priest splashed holy water on Sophia, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. For a moment, her eyes returned to normal, and she gasped. "Daniel, help me," she cried. But before Daniel could respond, the spirit regained control, throwing him across the room. Sophia stood up, her face twisted in a wicked smile. "You're too late," the spirit sneered. "She's mine now." Father John stepped forward, chanting louder. The crucifix glowed faintly, and the spirit screamed in agony. Sophia fell to her knees, clutching her stomach as a dark shadow began to rise from her body. "Leave her," the priest commanded. The shadow hovered for a moment, letting out a final, terrifying scream before vanishing. Sophia collapsed, her body limp. Daniel rushed to her side. "Sophia, are you okay?" Sophia opened her eyes weakly, but the look in them was not her own. The battle wasn't over. Sophia woke up the next morning, her body aching and her mind foggy. The memories of the exorcism were blurry, but the fear remained sharp. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand, his face pale and tired. "Is it over?" Sophia asked weakly. Father John, who was still in the room, gave a cautious nod. "The spirit has been banished, but its presence was strong. You must be careful. Stay vigilant." Sophia nodded, though a part of her wasn't convinced. The house was quiet now, too quiet, but she tried to convince herself it was finally over. Weeks passed, and Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Lily, a name Sophia had always loved. Holding Lily in her arms for the first time, Sophia felt an overwhelming wave of love and relief. The nightmare seemed like a distant memory. But the peace didn't last. One night, as Sophia lay in bed with Lily sleeping in the crib beside her, she woke to the sound of soft crying. She turned on the lamp and looked at the crib, but Lily was fast asleep. Confused, Sophia got up and checked the nursery, but the room was empty. The crying grew louder, echoing through the halls. It was a baby's cry, but it didn't sound natural. It was hollow, distant, and filled with sorrow. Sophia's heart pounded as she followed the sound, her legs trembling. The crying led her to the nursery. When she opened the door, the room was freezing, and the crib was rocking on its own. "No," Sophia whispered, stepping back. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. The whispers returned, louder and angrier. "You can't keep her, she's mine." Sophia clutched her chest, gasping for air. She looked at the crib and froze. Standing next to it was a shadowy figure, a woman with empty, black eyes. "The spirit. Leave us alone," Sophia screamed. The spirit smiled coldly. "Did you really think you could stop me?" It hissed. "She belongs to me." Sophia stumbled backward, her legs giving out. The spirit leaned closer, its face inches from hers. "You'll never keep her safe," it whispered. Suddenly, Lily's cries filled the room. Sophia turned to the crib, but when she looked inside, she screamed. Lily's eyes were open, and they were pitch black. The spirit's voice echoed through the room, laughing. "I told you, Sophia, she's mine." Sophia's screams echoed through the house as the darkness closed in, and the nightmare began again.